This week on the Mary Sunshine Show, are MSers more likely to tell you to get off their lawn? It's possible. We're going to talk all about complaining and positivity and negativity in this episode. Let's go.
I'm ready to fly down 65, hit the coastline in the sunshine. I'm going to find my new high, hit the coastline in the sunshine.
All right, welcome back to the Mary Sunshine Show. Another week, and I promise you that it is not me wearing the same shirt every single week on purpose. It just happens to be that way. I like this shirt, and it fits me okay. But we are back, and we are talking about today, Colleen, complaining and negativity and how that can creep into your life when you have a disease like MS. And we asked the question in the opening, and so I'm going to ask you this now. Are you more likely to tell your neighbors to get off our lawn?
No,
I'm
not.
All right. Now, going back to complaining and negativity, is it easier to fall into that trap when you have something like MS?
I think it depends on a person's personality, but I do think that because you're faced with so many, quote, problems throughout your day, throughout your life, that it's easy, you could fall into that trap of being a complainer all the time.
Yeah. Now that is a big trap, right? Because you're going through different things, whether it's sleep issues, whether it's just balance issues. You're frustrated out for a walk, or maybe it's vision issues, those types of things. What do you do? Because you're a generally very positive person. I'm sure that's come through on camera. I think people who have watched all of the episodes can see that you're very positive despite having to go through some of this stuff. What are some of your strategies for staying that way?
Again, for me, it's all about perspective, right? Like, it frustrates me when I hear people complain that, I understand it's frustrating when finances are going up, but like when food prices are going up, but we can't change it. And that is something that I've learned, that yes, it's frustrating. You can be internally frustrated about certain things, but can you change it? And is it worth putting your energy and your effort and your thought into complaining over it? Because can you change it? Mm-mm.
Right, and that's a really good point. And then what you can do outside of that is focus on what you can change,
yes,
right? And
absolutely.
And what's positive. So how do you do? So you've now defined what you can't change, and it's funny because it's you and I think my Uncle Bob, who has Huntington's, and he's also right with you on he's one of the most positive people you ever met,
yeah.
Right? And always has been, but even now. He goes through what he goes through, just like you, and worse actually, because that's a faster progressing disease, and you just know he's always positive. He's always looking at the bright side. He's always looking,
friendly,
always smiling, always happy, and that's again because he, like you, chooses not to focus on the things he can't change right now, but he focuses on what life can bring to him otherwise. How would you, for somebody who's watching who's not like Uncle Bob and not like yourself, who really has a tough time picking out the positives, what would be your advice to them?
Okay, my advice would be looking for the things that, keep your eye open to the things that are, quote, good, quote, positive, make you happy. Look for those things. Incorporate the things that make you happy. I'm not personally a flower person, but if you like flowers, take one from your garden. Put it in a vase. If it makes you happy, do it, That's a very blanket statement, but that is
But I think it's a really good statement, because I think a lot of people start to forget what happens or what makes them happy. What are the things that they used to do that they think they can't do now, but maybe just do to a lesser level, that they should still really do because it makes them happy. And gardening's a great example, right? Because, it's you're really, really into it, and then maybe with MS or whatever it is you're going through, any other kind of disease or mobility disorder, and bending over and digging around in the garden isn't as easy as it used to be. Maybe you can have planter boxes, or you can do something
That's a good point.
right? Just find alternatives that are slightly different
Yeah.
than what you were doing before that can still make you happy, right?
Well, one thing that I'd like to add too that I found extremely helpful and extremely positive is helping other people. I know that with MS you might need help, but personally I love to collect things or food for the food bank. And a couple weeks ago I dropped some off at these physically at these homeless people, and they were happy AF. They were so happy. And so making other people happy is always a good way for you to feel happy, right? How can I be a good positive, sorry, I can't talk. How can you be a positive influence to other people?
Exactly. And of course, AF meaning as furry little things.
Yes.
But yeah, they were happy as furry little things. Yes. But it's a family show coming. No, AF is fine. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that's a great thing because it makes you happy to help others who need it in a different way than you need it.
Yeah.
Lots of people help you, and you're just paying it forward.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to do. What about those times where it's really tough? You just recently went through a very tough time sleeping. Thankfully, thank God, you're back to your
Yes.
sleep, and you're sleeping very well. And another topic coming up will be one of the programs that you're doing that you feel
Yes.
is really helping that.
Yeah.
We won't talk about the program itself today, but we will talk about how you felt when you were going through no sleep. First, tell us what happened from start to finish, and then how you kind of have dealt with it. Actually, tell us before. Sorry to interrupt you, but tell us how what happened, and then how you felt during it, and then we'll talk about what you did to change it up.
Now that's a very blanket question. Where do I start?
Well, I would say that it was a full week of no sleep,
Yes.
essentially. Right?
But do I start with the very beginning? So I have a prescribed medicine for sleep because I have been an insomniac my whole life. And my prescription was over, and my doctor was on vacation, so I couldn't get a refill of that prescription. So I was straight up sleepless, and I was trying everything to sleep. I was trying see all the things like melatonin and all those regular sleep aids. They don't work for me, at least. But now I lost where I was.
Just that melatonin doesn't work for you necessarily, those types of things.
Yeah,
But
so I had to wait, and then my lovely husband took me to urgent care,
Yep.
which is like a emergency walk-in clinic.
yeah, pseudo-emergency.
Yeah, and so that helped me get sleep that night. But I had a week of my symptoms were incredibly worse. My thinking was horrible. My psychology was not good. Yeah, it was bad. Like, you can't walk upstairs very well when you haven't slept. You can't walk when you haven't slept.
Yeah, so you had those physical symptoms get way worse. But I think the one that was most pronounced for me, going through it with you, was the psychological symptoms, right? So talk about what you were feeling and be honest.
Well, you feel so isolated because most people can sleep. I understand that insomnia is quite actually common, but yeah, you feel very isolated and you don't know where to turn for help. Like, I was turning everywhere I could, but like I said, the pharmacy sells melatonin and that doesn't work for me. So you feel isolated, you feel alone, and you're very, very anxious. You're like, am I going to be sleepless my whole life? Because you can't survive off of no sleep.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there too, psychology-wise, at the very end with saying, am I ever going to sleep again? So the first 2 nights might be because you don't have the medication. The next 2 become about maybe your head is also telling you can't sleep, right, without this medication. And so now it's even worse, more pronounced. Yeah. And then the more tired you are, the more you believe those things, and it just cycles, right?
Exactly, and you get overtired, so that's not good.
So what happened then when you got your prescription back and you had a good night's sleep? What happened, mentally especially?
Well, it didn't happen overnight. I mean, you can't have 2 weeks of no sleep and then one good sleep fixes everything.
Yeah.
But eventually, maybe like 4 or 5 days later, you start to feel more like yourself again. You can reason, you can problem solve. You're just you feel like $1,000,000.
That's good. That's good. So, knowing the end game, which was the feeling like $1,000,000 after a number of sleeps, what would be your advice to anybody that goes through something like that mentally? What would your advice be to how would you better face that mentally, do you think?
Someone who goes through straight insomnia?
Yeah, and knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, you're going to get your sleep, you're going to figure it out. What would you say to the person who feels like they're not? Because that's where you were initially, right?
Well, I think the message I'd like to give out is that it may take more time than you want. Even though I know, because I remember you feel like, how do I live the next minute? How do I survive the next day? Just knowing that an end is coming. If you've contacted your doctor or you've gone somewhere, it may take a couple days for the medicine to actually start working, but just know that you are doing something that will eventually help you out.
I love it. I love it. That's a great message. And I think that's a big key for any of us to remember when we go through those things, right? You weren't expecting that 2 weeks of no sleep. And so now we can make you watch yourself on the Mary Sunshine Show, telling you that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
There is light.
But it's understandable too. I think that's one other message we have to make sure everybody gets, is that we're not just telling you how to feel, because that's just stupid. Yeah. We can't tell people that are going through those things how to feel. We're telling you that there is the light at the end of the tunnel, but we totally acknowledge your feelings. Like, I mean, that's the one thing I've tried to get across to you. I even stayed up one of those nights with you, just in solidarity, like stand with your wife. And that was hard.
That was
like one night. I only did it one night, and then the next night I was like, sorry, babe. But I did it one night to stand in solidarity with you, and it was tough. And you can't judge a person who's going through it mentally until you've been through it yourself.
May I interject?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I know this is the biggest ask you'll hear, but as a partner, if you're a husband or a wife with a partner with MS who is also dealing with insomnia, I thought that was the most empathetic, the most kind action ever. That my husband stayed up with me the whole night, like he didn't sleep at all. And I felt horrible, but it was also nice. Like I felt bad that he was sleepless, but it was also really nice to know that you have that solidarity.
Well, hey, in sickness and in health, right? And that's but again, like I say, the next night was a little harder to have the solidarity, like it just because I can sleep, and it was I needed the sleep after that night, and so it was just. But what it did do for me was it gave me the perspective of what you must be feeling mentally. Like I had probably one of my worst mental days the day after. It was hard to be at work. Actually, I think it was a weekend maybe that we did it, so I wasn't at work. But even just doing the things around
the house
and things, you just don't, and you feel lethargic, and just not a lot to do, or a lot that you think you can do. It was just so we're not. I guess our point here is we're not knocking you for feeling terrible. What we're trying to do is give you a way out-ish. Yes. At least mentally, to try and go and do the things that are positive. And this goes for the whole topic today. This doesn't just go for sleep. This is like you say, or like we said with the gardening. Maybe you can't dig around outside in the dirt anymore, but you can still do the pots, little pots, or you can find the things that still make you happy, that are close to what you used to do.
Yeah.
Right?
But fulfill you. Yeah.
Yeah, fulfillment. That's a great thing, right? Like find the things that fulfill you, right? My uncle's, we talked about him earlier. He's a great example. He used to love to play pickleball, right? Still golfs, and does a great job there, and probably still plays pickleball too. But he also finds his passion in cheering on the Canadians in tennis and different things like that. He's always finding the way to be happy, and that is what everybody's mission should be. And I feel like that's your mission too: is always find the way to be happy. Don't let happiness get away. Because then you're just going to live your life in such a better way than if you let it spiral, right?
No, and then definitely just to repeat this, find happiness everywhere you can. Look for it.
Exactly.
Keep your eyes peeled.
Absolutely. That's the best line of the day. And that's where we're going to finish it off. This has been a great episode of Mary Sunshine Show. For Colleen, I'm Chris. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next week.